Hey fellas, I had the wonderful opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with Dan from Men Need to Be Heard. Absolutely wonderful conversation. The guy is just absolutely brilliant, very accommodating, very, very generous with his time and his resources. So this is a new channel. Thank you for being here. Expect more of this content coming forward, but what I wanted to do is take that podcast episode, break it up into a few different parts, and offer it to you in smaller doses. If you're new here, my name is Todd. I'm a psychologist. I work in men's issues, and I'm happy to be here for you. Our conversation revolves around my brand new book, Confessions, a Raw Chronicle of Fatherhood in the Age of Absence, in which 20 years ago I started to handwrite, journal style, my day-to-day process for nearly 2.5 years. So in this first segment, Dan and I talk about the importance and the value of journaling, especially during very challenging times, such as divorce and separation, maybe even infidelity. So I hope that you get something out of it, and I'll be back very soon with the next part. So without further ado, let's start listening to Dan and I.
He's written just an outstanding brand new book that I truly believe, and I'm not just saying that, can help many men out there who are facing a divorce or the potential of one. His name is Dr. Todd Bottom. He's a researcher, educator, and more importantly, a father. And as I said, Dr. Todd has just released a deeply personal book called Confessions, a Raw Chronicle of Fatherhood in the Age of Absence. Say that 3 times fast. Which honestly is a no-holds-barred journal, and it's his actual journal of what his experiences were like as he struggled to navigate divorce, fatherhood, even I'd argue his identity as a man in today's culture, which is something else we struggle with. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, including the pain, the lessons, the hope that came out of it, and how it can help all of you. So, without further ado, please let me welcome to the show, Dr. Todd Bottom. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks, Dan. I really hope I can live up to that. That was incredible. Thank you for that.
And you know what? 90% of it was off the top of my head. I work from bullet points. That's truly how it is.
Excellent.
But you know, honestly, about the book, just real quick, as people are watching this and they're coming in and they're like, well, what's this about? This is an important thing, and I hope you'll take the time to watch the show and hear what he has to say, and then go get the book, because, as I said, so many men struggle, and this can be a life-changing thing. So now I've really set the bar high. But why don't we start off, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive in from there.
Absolutely. So my name is Todd. I'm in Florida now, grew up in small towns, Illinois, in a low middle class home, and really naive. And I think that this sets up, some of the context of our discussions. Grew up in very small towns, very naive. Didn't get out of town. We didn't do vacations, anything like that. So a lot of that is the setup for my attempts to recover and to kind of get past the divorce thing. So now I live in Florida. So as far as kind of the story and the book go, I was married in 1995, very young. She was, I think, 19. I had just turned 22, maybe 21. Divorced 11 years later. We had 3 young daughters. Their ages were about 2 to 7 at that time. So at that time, when during the divorce, I had an associate's degree, and with not a lot of hope in a small town and nowhere to go, I went back and finished my bachelor's degree. Went on to finish my master's and then my Ph.D. We can bring a little bit of this in a little bit later, but I did incorporate some of my personal experience into my professional research as a grad student. So I just really wanted to get back into the space of helping guys, and so that's why I'm so incredibly happy to be here and to talk to you and your viewers.
I'm kind of chuckling, Todd, because my first marriage, I was 22. She was 19. It lasted. The marriage lasted 11 years. I mean,
did it really?
Yeah. I mean, and we'll get into some of the parallels, because as I was reading the book and I was talking to you off air about this, I'm like, that's me. That's me. That's me. And that's the important part to take away from it is, we're not the exceptions, we're the rule, and that's where you can really benefit from it by understanding that this is what most guys go through. And we'll jump into it more, but I want to start out by asking you, you share so much in this, and it's so deeply personal. What got you started with keeping the journal, first of all? And it wasn't every single day, but it was a lot of days. So what got you to start the journal, keep it going, and then the big one, deciding to share it all? I'm curious on that.
No, that's some really good context for interested readers. So it started when I was going to therapy. So this is during the separation, and I'll just set up a little bit of context here. So the journal starts during separation, and my reflection of the marriage, and there was her infidelity involved as well, and I just couldn't process it. I didn't know how. So I was in therapy, and one of the suggestions that this woman had was, because I wanted to meet more frequently. So one of her recommendations was, well, write things down so that next time you come in, we can kind of go through things a little bit more quickly and cover more territory. And then she recommended, well, those really painful parts in that process, why don't you reflect on those? So these were things that happened, a couple months prior, 3-4 months prior maybe. And then so it just grew from there. I lost my ability to pay for the sessions. And I just continued to do it. And after a while, it just became a habit. And after a while, continued, it became my therapy. And I wholeheartedly believed, Anna, that I'd be dead if I hadn't written it. I'm sure you got to that point, where I had those thoughts.
Yeah.
I think I looked at it one time. I think there's 246 days that I wrote in a little over 2 years. So there's a lot of days.
Yeah, I mean, it's like every other day on average, something like that. And I have to tell you, Todd, because one of the things that when I'm working with guys, I'm a huge advocate for a couple of reasons, is journaling.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest reasons is exactly what you said. It helps you reflect, it helps you kind of heal and all of that process. But there's also the legal side of it, because one of the things that guys really struggle with is, we're human beings. Our memories are not perfect, not by any shot. And by journaling your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, hopefully in some facts as well, that can come back to pay off huge down the road. And I use it myself as an example. There were times, because I went through family court for 12 years, I could look back on things I had written 5-6 years earlier that were germane to what the problem was now, and go, okay. And, as I've relayed before on this podcast, I actually was allowed to bring my journal up on the stand. Her attorney didn't want it, but the judge let it in so I could sit and read from it. And that had, oh my God, the effect that had. Because, again, you want to keep factual in court, and I was, but you could also hear the emotion behind it. And that's something that,
absolutely, yeah.
As I was reading through the book and the emotional side of it, is so critical, because when I talk to guys about journaling, and I'm sure you've probably run into this too, they think it's either girly, wimpy, I'm not going to keep a diary, all that stuff, right? But as you said, and I'll back you up on, is a way to deal with your emotions, and dealing with the pain, the stress, all of that. As you were doing it, can you go a little bit deeper on like the feelings you had as you were journaling? So what was happening?
Yeah. So, and I'll go one step further. You mentioned the feelings and processing. In the email, I think it was that you'd sent me, one of the best things that it helped me with, and yes, I did go back and reflect on my writing on occasion. I'd go back a week or 3 weeks or 3 months prior and read what I had written. Sometimes it would bring me to tears again as I was reading it, a month or 6 months later. Some of it still does, if I think about it too much. But yeah, but also as a way to think, holy shit. I went through that and I survived, and because it was so some of it was so challenging. I didn't have time to process, like, even the moment. I just get my thoughts down. 6-9 months later, I'd go back to it and be like, oh my God, how did I survive that? And then it also, I've come so far. Like, there's so much that I've accomplished, and I was really proud of myself. So I would say anybody, it's free therapy. It's so helpful. I would say anybody, don't worry about what people think about you. Just sit down and write. Go to a coffee shop. Take it out on a boat. You're just some kind of notepad. Go do it. So I kind of went off a little bit there, but what I was feeling most of the time, it was just writing. What I thought at the time was a lot of mundane stuff. There's a lot of personal reflection on my feelings that I was having at that time. There were a few times where I was writing where I was extremely emotional, and in fact, I don't know if I actually wrote this in the journal pages or not, but for a long time I intentionally made an effort to not write while I was emotional, because I didn't want to be extremely sad, extremely pissed. I wanted to have kind of clarity as I was writing, just even for myself. But the one time I can remember that I was just absolutely bawling as I was writing, it was that first Christmas Eve, about 6 months after the separation papers were signed. I was staying at my mother's house at the time, right? I'm in my early 30s. It was Christmas Eve. My mom, my stepdad, and my younger sister were in the next room watching a movie, and I'm in this spare bedroom with no one to talk to. I mean, I had my family there, but like a lot, we didn't talk about personal things. So I couldn't really anything like that. I didn't have any friends, and lost a lot of those in the process. And I remember just bawling as I was writing. I wish somebody loved me. I mean, it's almost comical now, and it shouldn't be, I suppose. But it's like, oh my God, there's no one here. All I wanted for someone to love me, and it was, yeah. I still remember that day.
And see, here's the important part of that. It's my opinion, and you can jump in with it. That's what helps you heal, right? It's okay to cry. It's okay to have all those feelings you were sharing. Again, just to back you up, I went through similar stuff, right? I remember Christmases and birthdays and all that, and not being able to see the kids and all that, and I would sit and cry also. And it's okay to do that. So many guys think, "Oh, it's not manly." Bullshit. It is manly. Okay,
it's helpful. In fact, it's healthy.
It is, but it takes strength to let the emotions out, not hold them in. That's a big takeaway, and that's where, again, one of the strengths of the book, I think, is it will teach guys that it is okay. And you keyed on something that I was going to mention later, but might as well jump into it now, which is being able to go back and read it weeks, days, months, years, maybe decades later, can have a tremendous boost on your ego in some ways, your confidence in many ways, because you, like you said it yourself, you survived this. And I've got all my journaling and all that. Mine were on 3.5 floppy disks. That's how long ago mine was. But I did
aged yourself there, Dan.
I just transferred them all over, and they're all digital on my computers now. But as I read back, because my stuff was in the mid-90s, as I read back through that stuff and realized that, you know what, I survived a hell of a lot, and it made me better. Right, and that's the big takeaway. That's why I'm such a strong advocate for journaling, because, you can go sit. I'm not a huge fan of therapy. I'm not going to lie.
Same here.
They're just the mental health profession, with all due respect to you, because I know your doctorate, is a joke at these days, right? But being able to see what you wrote and build on that and go, like you said yourself, sometimes it's embarrassing. Sometimes it's cathartic. Sometimes it's confidence building. It's all of that. You get to re-experience those emotions, but you're coming at it from a better place, I think. And those are key things, don't you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, as I was getting this ready for print, I realized the one day, I pinpointed it to one day where I didn't change overnight. But I realized that I call it my fuck it day. It's the day that I realized, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with people. I'm done trying to satisfy others. I'm done listening to doing what other people want or think I should do. So that's one now 20 years later, where I'm like, oh, well, that was probably 18, 19 years later at this point. But I was like, oh my God, reflecting back, that makes so much sense. I wrote it on this day. And as I was, getting ready, putting this in paperback form, I was like, yep, now I can see the progression. I could tie it back to that one day. I was like, that makes so much sense. And that helps me out even now, because it helps explain a lot of my personality, right? I can be abrasive sometimes. I understand that, but a lot of it is because of these experiences. I have no shame in saying that. But yeah, I mean, just reaching back and being, oh, that's what happened. That's why I'm now like this. You can, yeah, it's wonderful.
But it's a way that you can look back and assess your strengths, see your weaknesses, and work on them. That's the whole key with all of this.